Good afternoon, Patriot pals. Thank you for joining me. How are you? Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, now we will come to today's news. Donald Trump has announced his intent to run, and it is official. Trump is the overwhelming favorite for 2024. Among the conservative base at CPAC in Texas, he won the unofficial straw poll or the official straw poll by an overwhelming majority over Ron DeSantis, who's also fantastic, but we need Trump. There are too many morally superior, highly educated, wonderful, apoplectic, almost always hysterical, but always highly educated, liberal Democrats. There are fantastic people. They've tried desperately to prevent this man from running. And that, in addition to record highs in household median income, real wages, a growing economy, hundreds of thousands of new manufacturing jobs, as opposed to the nightmarish economy we have now, and foreign policy. That is a reason to vote for Trump. I think it's a moral imperative to vote for Trump when you have so many people trying desperately to make absurd claims about this man, from being installed by the Kremlin to being this obstacle to democracy. These are the people who can't even run a functioning primary. These are the people who cheat Bernie Sanders every 4 years. Then they talk about how Trump is a menace to democracy. It's like, look in the mirror. I'm going to read you this Fox News article. Donald Trump teases a White House bid in 2024. Comeback bid, the time is coming, he states. Former President Donald Trump strongly indicated he's preparing to run for president and suggested an announcement will come soon. Everything changes. Ladies and gentlemen, the day he announces that everything changes. They can't indict him. The only way to stop Trump is to indict him. The only way to possibly stop him is to indict him. Then you open up a Pandora's box of Attorney General Republic. Trump's Republican Attorney General is so even going to have just Jeff Sessions. He will have a Trump Republican as his running mate, and he hopes to win in 2024. And people vote against poverty. If you're voting for Democrats, you're voting for poverty. It's not really running for poverty, chaos, or societal collapse. I mean, you look at what's taking place in the country today. And it's like, okay, this didn't take place under Trump. You had a media meltdown. You had all the smartest people in the room, hysterical and raving and ranting about how bad he was. And the Helsinki conference and all of these things. It's like we had record highs in household median income and personal income, real wages were up, and the economy was growing. We did not have a recession, with poverty and 14 to 15% levels. We had poverty at a record low under Trump. And we didn't see the things that we see every single day. You can just look at the news. Society is slowly breaking down, it's breaking apart. And this is what happens when you have too many democratic policies. Okay, when you're letting out, I'm all for criminal justice reform. But when you're letting out violent offenders, okay, only an imbecile would believe that that type of person wouldn't commit another criminal violent act. It's like, you're yes. I'm all for actually letting out nonviolent, okay. But if you're letting people out without bail, who are committing really heinous atrocities, or trying to, then they're going to continue to wreak havoc upon society, because there's something that Democrats don't understand that Trump understands. You understand? I understand. Okay, I'm going to speak very slowly. Okay, you can enact all this legislation anytime you want. Criminals do something very interesting. What do? Oh, that's right. They break the law. So they're going to find a way. And just because you can't find a way because you're a law-abiding, wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrat doesn't mean that a criminal can find a way to obtain illegally any substance, anything they want, any weapon they want. And they do so all the time. Because criminals break the law, a new concept for wonderful morally superior. Highly educated, fantastic Democrats anyway, not just that, I mean, our society is collapsing. He's not going to really like it. If you don't like Trump's personality, great. That's fine. I respect that. If you don't like Trump's personality, I respect you for just telling the truth. If you try to conflate his personality, the media caricature of Trump, and perhaps also how he, kind of feeds or creates this persona, because he knows the media will just, sensationalize everything he does. But if you can't delineate between his accomplishments and who he is as a human being, or at least his accomplishments, you judge people by their actions. You don't judge people by their words. Okay, Biden has presided over 9.1% inflation and a story in a recession. End of story. There is nothing there. There's no other discussion there. The economy is terrible, and a story can end the debate there. Trump had a growing economy with record highs in household median income, and anyone who says he abandoned the working class is an imbecile who knows nothing about Trump's accomplishments or how bad things are now. But he's going to run. They say he hasn't committed a crime. Hunter said Hillary did, and James Comey went to bat. And so James Comey, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, said we couldn't find intent for the one time in the history of the Bureau that a top official or any official said, gosh, the criminal didn't really intentionally mean to do that. So I'm looking for Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, 2024, or the suspect, and I'm looking for Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, 2024. I think there's nothing stopping Hillary this time around, and honestly, she'd be better than mashed potato with Biden, but obviously I'm saying this because I also think that Trump will defeat Clinton again, but Clinton should run again. And there's no shame in being a loser twice. Because you know what? At least you tried. And also, anyway, there's no shame. And so you have to try in life. And that's one thing I'll give both Clintons. They never stop. Bill was actually a much better president than Bush. Or even President Obama. President Obama destroyed Libya. So Bill Clinton doesn't have that on his resume. But Trump was a better president than any president in my lifetime. You look at the economy. You look at the foreign policy Doha agreement that Biden botched, but it was Trump who brought home Americans' knock. Biden reluctantly did so because he was forced to because of the Doha agreement. You'd have to know a little something about foreign policy to understand that. Okay, the Lincoln Project people are embedded within the Democratic Party. They don't want Americans coming home. They look at everything like Stratego, or the Dungeons and Dragons board game. And they look at the world as just a bunch of chess pieces. That's why Cheney, Rumsfeld, Bush, all of these people are relics. They're dinosaurs. Because Trump kicked them all out. It took about 2 seconds for Jeb Bush to lose miserably to Trump in the primary 2 years ago. It was hilarious. Nobody believed he couldn't even say one of the things, if you remember. And this was a long time ago, not a long time ago, but Jeb Bush couldn't even say that the Iraq War was a mistake by his brother, George W. So he couldn't even say that he backtracked. And he said, yes, Trump. He's not. He's against counterinsurgency conflicts. But see, again, I was told by one person on the left once. Well, climate change affects the planet. And anyway, these are the soldiers who signed up for it. It's like, oh, my God. Now I know. Now, I know that the twisted and warped mentality would rather have never-ending wars as long as they think climate change is being combative. There is no way to categorically state, define, tabulate, or conclude how your climate change policies protect the planet. There's no way other than a whole bunch of people agreeing with it. Now I agree. Climate change is very important. It's an issue to combat, but not when you have. And would you believe me if I told you that Joe Biden and the Biden administration, everyone around him, are lying to you? Obviously, I'm just playing around. We all already know this to be the case. But here we go again. As the calendar takes us into the month of August, the Biden administration does what the Biden administration always does. They lie and try to carefully craft a narrative. Over 500,000 new jobs were added in the United States yesterday, and the labor market is stronger than ever. That's what they continue to tell you. The economy is in a historically great place. Korean, Jean-Pierre continues to repeat. But of course, like everything that comes out of the Biden administration, it needs to be taken with a grain of salt and needs to be analyzed a little bit further, to get into the nitty-gritty, so to speak, into the details and see what's really going on. Because it turns out that, actually, the labor market is not as strong as Biden continues to claim it is. He's not creating all of these millions upon millions of jobs that he claims he is. And actually, things are looking pretty grim. People are looking at the markets right now. And yes, there's been a little bit of a bounce back, which is perfectly normal during a bear market to have little rallies called dead cat bounces, and, in certain cases, have some pretty strong rallies. But in the long term, my prediction is that this Biden recession is far from over. And even though this administration is pretending as if the recession is already behind us, the economy is stronger than ever, and it's nothing but up from here. I'll tell you why I think these people are, as usual, full of crap. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We've got some stuff to talk about. So let's roll the tape. Right, folks. So here's what happened. The New York Times reports that job growth unexpectedly soared in July. The employment gains, which far surpassed expectations, show that the labor market is not slowing down. Despite efforts by the Federal Reserve to cool the economy, 520,000 jobs were created in July in quotation marks, probably added as a better word, which was higher than expected. And the New York Times says that U.S. job growth unexpectedly soared in July. I wouldn't say it's unexpected because actually, we predicted this over the last couple of months and weeks that most likely we're going to see a surge in the job market throughout the summer. I mean, it's just the basic summer rush. Like I keep telling you guys, if there's going to be a really rough economic time following this recession, it's not going to be in the summer, it's going to be in October or November, most likely October. That's why it's called Red October. But of course, left-wingers in the media are running with this story and claiming it's the Biden boom, but not exactly. It's a great headline. Absolutely. And I don't blame the Democrats for trying to get wins where they can. I mean, W's are very rare and very rare supply is almost non-existent for Joe Biden and his Democrat goons these days, but behind the headline beneath the surface, this is not what Democrats are claiming. It is not even close. Famed investor and economist Peter Schiff really puts it into perspective with this tweet right over here. There was a net loss of full-time jobs in July. All of the net 528,000 jobs added were part-time jobs, most of them low-paying service sector jobs. Since the number of people in the workforce keeps falling, these part-time jobs went to people who already had at least one other job. And this right here is the fallacy of this whole thing. This Democrat talking point that the jobs market is so incredibly strong, we keep adding on more jobs, they keep telling you, but actually, it's low-skilled, low-paid part-time jobs in secondary jobs. First of all, it's exactly what you'd expect in the summer. I mean, that's what happens. Kids are off school, and there are day camps and sports camps, side jobs, side hustles, and the tourism industry is starting to boom. And so obviously, what we're seeing in this summer boom is expected, but it's even weaker than usual because it's indicating that more people are being hired part-time rather than full-time. And we're also seeing that more people are resorting to having to work a second job for supplementary income in order to sustain their lives in these weak economic times. This is what the Biden administration is touting as the strongest economy ever. But of course, the reality is quite the opposite, especially when it comes to professional, high-paying jobs. We just got word that tech behemoth Oracle is laying off hundreds of employees, according to the Wall Street Journal. And that follows the trend of this year's 12 biggest tech layoffs of the year. So far, more than 32,000 tech workers from every corner of the industry have already lost their jobs this year, and more are almost certainly on the way. And so it seems as though the real story is that people are struggling and having to supplement their income and that people are not getting good, high-paying jobs. They're working part-time in the low-paying service sector. And those jobs might not even be there by the end of the summer. Oh, I forgot to mention this headline. Amazon is also shrinking its workforce by 100,000 as hiring freezes and layoffs hit the tech sector. And so it seems that the Biden recession is far from over. He's telling you to come on, man. Look at all the jobs I created, but it's nothing but dishonest left-wing propaganda. And if that was the case, that the economy was doing historically well, then why is the stock market still 15 points lower than its previous high at the start of 2022? Why is it that, on the back of this jobs report, stocks are actually going down instead of going up? Wall Street falls as job data suggests Fed hikes are not over. Sizzling U.S. jobs data makes a case for a bigger Fed rate increase. In other words, Jerome Powell at the Fed is working on a couple of goals: demand destruction, slowing down the economy, job growth, and quantitative tightening in an effort to reduce inflation. And they're doing this at increasing rates. Of course, the Fed rate, we've been covering it over the last couple of months. Well, with these kinds of jobs reports, it means the Fed is going to have to increase rates further. Look at market history. Look at economic history. Over the last 50 years, when Fed interest rates were high, the economy stagnated and the market certainly stagnated. In other words, Joe Biden's claim that we're headed towards slow and steady growth is completely bogus. If we were in the strongest economy ever, we'd be in a bull run, especially off the backs of reports like these, but we're seeing the exact opposite. Because people know that interest rates are going to continue to go up and the markets will inevitably, most likely go down. As a result, Wall Street is predicting a full Fed pivot by Q1 or Q2 2023. And what I mean by pivot is when the Fed actually starts to reverse track and reduce interest rates rather than hike them, and then we might be in a full-fledged economic recovery. But to pretend like we're in it right now is a lie in the midst of a recession. And it's very likely very possible that it continues to get worse as household credit card debt surges in the second quarter with the highest jump in over 20 years. Nearly 2/3 of Americans are now living paycheck to paycheck, stagnating markets, reduced corporate earnings, and what seems to be an actually very weak labor market when you lift up the hood and take a peek at the engine inside. That's not a booming economy or a booming economic recovery. That's the Biden recession. It's that simple. Folks, Joe Biden and his Democratic henchmen are lying to you, and I always advise you to prepare accordingly. Oh, well, don't worry, folks, at least gas is 20 cents cheaper than it was a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully you folks enjoyed this chat this morning. God bless you. Thank you.